So it turns out she's a transmigrator, stuck in the body of the villainess from a novel. To stay alive, she had to bind herself to a villain system and become its host. From that day on, she began her life of completing missions as a villain across different worlds. These tasks ranged from small-time schemes like slander and sabotage to big-league evil like arson and murder, even destroying entire worlds. The bottom line was, she had to be as bad as possible. In this particular world, her name is Ruan Li. She's the youngest martial ant of the Cloud Immortal sect and is known as its #1 beauty. She was once a cultivation prodigy, the center of everyone's attention, but a training accident caused her to go berserk. Her spiritual meridians were completely shattered, turning her into a powerless nobody. To maintain her stunning beauty, she has to secretly prey on her fellow disciples, draining their life essence to refine into pills for herself. She has 3 main missions in this world: harm her fellow disciples, kill the current sect leader, who is also her senior martial brother. Finally, get killed by the story's male lead, her own martial nephew. After all, what's the point of being a proper villain if you don't get a grand finale by dying at the hands of the hero? Just before all this, she had finished preying on another disciple. She'd just returned to her quarters and was about to wash off the scent of blood when her martial nephew suddenly burst in and tackled her. She was suddenly pinned to the ground by him. The problem was, she was completely powerless to fight back. Her cultivation channels had been destroyed, leaving her as weak as a kitten. She could feel that something was seriously wrong with her nephew. His breathing was ragged, his energy chaotic. She shouted a warning, telling him to look closely and see who she was. Her nephew struggled, his mind clearing for a moment. "Auntie, is that you? I'm sorry. I think someone drugged me. Is there a cure?" This was a tough one. Her eyes darted around and landed on a basin of water nearby. Summoning the last bit of her magical energy, she made the basin wobble into the air and float over to them, drenching them both like a pair of drowned rats. "Are you sober now?" she asked. "Auntie, I think I'm still a little..." Splash. "How about now?" Okay, thank you, Auntie." "Good. Now that you're sober, get out." Although he's since regained his senses and she's kicked him out of the room, he's been kneeling outside her door, refusing to leave. He thinks she's furious and has decided to kneel there until she calms down. Sighing, she opens the door again to send him away, only to be met with his sincere apology. "I was wrong to disturb you, Aunt. If you haven't forgiven me, I won't leave. Please, punish me as you see fit." "But I'm not angry," she says, "and I have no intention of punishing you. You said you were set up, which means it wasn't intentional. Just be more careful from now on so it doesn't happen again. Now go." Her nephew's eyes widened. His master, the sect leader, had drilled one lesson into him since childhood. Failure was not an option. "You are different from the other disciples. You are gifted, the hope of our sect. A child of destiny is not allowed to make mistakes. You must be a role model for everyone. You cannot be weak, you cannot be discouraged, and you absolutely cannot cause trouble." But just now his aunt had told him she wasn't mad at all. For the first time in his life, he felt a warmth spread through his chest. It was the first time anyone had ever said something like that to him. As if on cue, the person who had drugged him appeared, Zhao Qianyi, a relative of the sect leader. She strolled up, pretending to be oblivious, and tried to link her arm with his. He immediately shook her off. "Are you done with your act?" he demanded. Zhao Qianyi's eyes instantly filled with tears. "Senior brother, please don't be angry. I had no idea you were allergic to that tea." He didn't buy it for a second. After pushing her away, he gave her a stern warning. "Out of respect for the sect leader, I won't expose your little game in public. But if you bother me again, I won't be so courteous." Zhao Qianyi's expression turned cold as she watched him walk away. She couldn't understand it. He drank the potion, so why was he so clear-headed? Then it hit her. He had come from the direction of the back mountain. Could it be? After the drug made him pounce on his aunt, he went back to his room and had an eventful dream. The next morning, he woke up to a rather embarrassing surprise in his bed, which was unfortunately witnessed by his junior brother. "Don't worry, senior brother," the junior said with a knowing grin. "It's springtime. I get it. I'll go grab you a clean pair of trousers. Shut up and get out." After getting dressed, he immediately set off to find his aunt. Meanwhile, his aunt was frowning at a roster of names. As a transmigrator playing the villainess, her mission required her to kill a few fellow disciples every 2 months. But she wasn't a monster. She only targeted the hypocrites and scumbags. For instance, the disciples she had dealt with last night were the same ones who had assaulted a farmer's daughter in the village a few months prior. It just goes to show that even a villain isn't purely evil. Just then, her nephew arrived to inform her that there was an urgent assembly in the main hall. On the way, she noticed he looked pale and asked if he'd had a nightmare. He blushed, said nothing, and just turned away and started walking faster. Soon, everyone from the Cloud Immortal sect was gathered in the main hall. The urgent matter was, of course, related to the murders on the back mountain last night. It turned out a serial killer had been operating within the sect for some time, and they still had no leads. With the Triennial Immortal Sect Conference just 3 months away, this was a serious problem. If they didn't solve the case, the Cloud Immortal Sect would become a laughingstock. The elders tasked the sect's head disciple, Bailey Yankee, her nephew, with the case. He had to find the killer and deliver justice for the sect and the deceased disciples. Yes, of course, there's nothing our senior brother can't do, the crowd murmured. Yankee lowered his head, his expression complicated. Suddenly, a teacup was thrust in front of him. This tea is bitter, his aunt commanded. Go get me a new cup. Yankee took the cup and bowed respectfully. Immediately, the disciple's whispered gossip shifted to his aunt. I heard that Marshal Aunt Ruin Lee was the sect leader's last disciple, and she's the current leader's junior sister. She used to have incredible potential but got reckless, had a training accident, and her meridians were destroyed. She's basically useless now. Even so, the sect leader dotes on her, even letting a cripple like her sit in on important meetings. Hearing this, Yankee shot the two gossipers a warning glare. But it also made him realize just how much his aunt was looked down upon by the others. And yet she was so clever. She had noticed him spacing out and used the tea as an excuse to snap him out of it. Just then, the sect leader addressed him again. Yankee, you cannot be lazy with this investigation. You must find the killer within half a month. Yankee accepted the order. Then his aunt spoke up, offering a clue. This morning I examined the bodies. They were all stabbed multiple times before being strangled. The ligature marks from the silk thread go from bottom to top, which means the killer enjoys torture and is relatively short. If you narrow your search with that in mind, you should be able to eliminate a lot of suspects. Yankee thanked his aunt, surprised that she had helped him once again. After the meeting, Ruin Lee's system curiously asked her, Aren't you afraid the male lead will trace those clues right back to you if you're so blatant? Ruin Lee seemed completely unconcerned. I can't stand seeing them pile all that pressure onto a kid, she replied. Besides, isn't it better to move the plot along faster? He'd been drugged by his junior sister and had nearly assaulted his own aunt. So he was completely baffled when that same junior sister showed up the next day, acting as if nothing had happened. He had already warned her the night before, but she was impossibly thick-skinned. Senior brother, investigating must be tiring. Come try these pastries I learned to make. No, thank you. I thought I made myself clear last night. But I already apologized. Why won't you forgive me? Onlookers started to mutter amongst themselves. Junior sister is so cute. What could she have possibly done that's so unforgivable? Senior brother is being so unreasonable. The junior sister then tried to force the box of pastries into his hands, but he kept refusing. Just then, a clear female voice cut through the air from a short distance away. What's the difference between forced kindness and malice? His aunt stood there looking nonchalant. Sorry, I was just reciting a line from a book I was reading. Did I interrupt something? Yankee bowed politely to his aunt. She had saved him from an awkward situation yet again. This, however, infuriated the junior sister. She couldn't believe how close Yankee and his aunt seemed. Just then, the same gossipy disciple from before started running his mouth again. So that's the useless Marshal Aunt Ruin? She's beautiful, I'll give her that, but her tongue is sharp. So much for acting like an elder, taking passive-aggressive jabs at junior sister. Yankee's face darkened. He immediately ordered the guards to seize the disciple for disrespecting an elder. Take him to the ancestral hall and whip him 100 times. The disciple immediately started begging for forgiveness, but it was no use. The other disciples had never seen their senior brother Yankee so angry. It was clear his aunt held a special place in his heart. A little while later, his aunt mentioned she was going down the mountain to buy a few things. Worried for her safety with the serial killer still on the loose, Yankee insisted on going with her, offering to carry her things. On the way back, he noticed that his aunt didn't abstain from food like most cultivators and had a particular fondness for sweets. In that sense, she was just like any other girl. When she caught him staring at the bag of sweet chestnuts in her arms, she thought he wanted some. Would you like one? She asked. He turned away, flustered. The sect leader taught me that the head disciple must act like one. The next second, a peeled chestnut was popped directly into his mouth. You clearly wanted one. You've been staring the whole way. Why didn't you just say so? His face flushed red all the way to his ears. Just like before, he suddenly sped up and walked ahead of her. After he helped put her new things away in her room, he went to report to the sect leader. His master asked if there was any progress on the murder case. Yankee answered honestly, saying he hadn't found any suspects yet, but he had discovered something interesting. The disciples killed last night had assaulted a young woman in the village half a year ago, driving her to suicide. Furthermore, he found that all the victims from previous years had also committed shameful acts. They deserved to die was a fitting description. It seemed the killer was acting as a vigilante. But something was off. A typical righteous person would expose the criminal's deeds and turn them over to the sect for punishment. This killer, however, chose to torture and murder them in secret. This suggested the killer had lost all faith in the sect's authority and justice, choosing to take matters into their own hands. The sect leader was stunned, realizing the sect had lost its credibility in someone's eyes. He told his disciple to continue the investigation and solve the case before the Immortal Sect conference. Just as he was about to leave, Yankee knelt again. "Master, I have one more thing to report. Winter is coming, and Marshal Aunt Ruinlee's residence on the back mountain is severely lacking in supplies. She doesn't even have a single winter item. Could we arrange to have some sent to her?" The sect leader sighed. His junior sister was still keeping everything bottled up inside. She was going to make herself sick one day. He decided to have Yankee take Ruinlee and a few other disciples to the Immortal Sect conference next month. It would be a good chance for her to get out and relax, but her mission demanded that she kill someone tonight. As a transmigrator playing the villainess, if she didn't kill someone every 2 months, the system would kill her. The deadline was fast approaching. The problem was there were only a dozen or so disciples with them. If one of them died, the chances of her being caught were dangerously high. But even before she could make a move, she had already managed to annoy nearly every other girl in the group. Why does senior brother Yankee spend all his time hovering around Marshal Aunt Ruin? We can barely get a word in with him. Just then, the junior sister, Zhao Chenyi, shot her a venomous glare from across the campfire. At that exact moment, Yankee leaned in close to his aunt. "Aunt, we brought back some game from the hunt. What would you like? I'll roast it for you." "I like rabbit." So Yankee obediently started roasting a rabbit for her. He had always assumed girls couldn't bear to eat cute little rabbits, but his aunt was different. When the meat was cooked, she began eating with a look of pure bliss. Yankee watched her with a fond smile. He never knew that beneath her cold exterior, she could have such an adorable expression. "Eat slowly," he said gently. "If you like it, I can cook more." Watching from a distance, Zhao Qianyi's heart soured with jealousy. Why did his aunt get all of Yankee's attention? Just because her cultivation was ruined, did that mean her hands were crippled too? Couldn't she roast her own meat? After everyone had eaten, they settled down for the night, leaning against each other for warmth. Yankee was on patrol duty. As he made his rounds, his gaze once again fell upon his aunt. When she was resting, the cold, sharp edges of her personality seemed to melt away. She looked like an ordinary girl. Technically, she was over 100 years old, but with her eyes closed, she looked no older than a young woman who had just come of age. Suddenly, the cloak draped over her shoulders slipped off. He hesitated for a moment before deciding to gently pull it back up for her. As he did, she shifted, her body leaning unsteadily against his. She was sound asleep, and he didn't have the heart to wake her. His hand hovered near her cheek, but he pulled it back, scolding himself for even thinking of being so improper. Time passed. In the dead of night, while everyone was asleep, a female disciple snuck away. "Senior brother Q, where are you?" "I'm here. Junior sister, right on time." "We don't have long, let's get started before anyone notices." The next second, his aunt, who had appeared to be sound asleep, was suddenly awake. She nudged the dozing Yankee. "Wake up, there's a demon." Yankee immediately sprang to his feet and shouted, "All disciples, on my command, form ranks and prepare to fight." The disciples scrambled to form a sword formation. Just as they did, several vicious vines shot out from the ground, terrifying them. "Don't be afraid," his aunt called out calmly. "Use your fire spells and focus your attacks on the demon's weak central core." Yankee ordered everyone to follow her instructions. A dozen disciples unleashed their power in unison, and the ferocious vines were instantly burned to a crisp. A wave of excitement washed over them. It was the first time they had ever successfully killed a demon. "It's all thanks to Aunt's guidance." Surrounded by praising disciples, his aunt was a little taken aback. Yankee watched from the side with a proud smile. It seemed everyone was finally starting to accept her. She used to be the most despised aunt in the entire sect. But after she helped the disciples slay a demon in the wilderness, her popularity skyrocketed. Now, when they checked into an inn, the disciples were practically fighting over who got to pay for her room. While this was a good thing, Yankee found himself feeling a bit jealous. It used to be just him by her side, but now she was always surrounded by a crowd of people. It was frustrating. That night, as he bathed in his room, he wondered why he felt so unhappy about her newfound popularity. Suddenly, he overheard a discussion from the room next door. "I got closer to Aunt today and realized she's actually really cute. She's not cold and unapproachable like the rumors say. She's really nice. I wonder what kind of man she'll end up with." A surge of anger went through Yankee. These junior brothers needed to be taught a lesson. How dare they have designs on his aunt? Just then, he heard a strange noise outside his door. He quickly threw on a robe and rushed out, just in time to see a shadowy figure dart away. As he was about to give chase, He noticed a freshly killed body lying on the floor behind him. He decided to examine the body first. The cause of death was identical to the previous victims back at the sect. The disciple had been brutally tortured before being strangled with a silk thread. By now, the commotion had drawn out all the male disciples. The victim had been sharing a room with junior brother Chen, so naturally, suspicion fell on him first. "It wasn't me, I swear," Chen insisted. "I was asleep in my room the whole time and didn't hear a thing. For some reason, I slept incredibly deeply tonight." Suddenly, Yankee spoke up in his defense. "He's not the killer. Based on the state of the body, the silk thread nearly severed the neck. The murder just happened, which means the killer's palms would have ligature marks, possibly even bleeding. Junior brother Chen's hands are perfectly clean." The other male disciples quickly showed their own palms, all of which were clean, clearing them of suspicion. Just then, his aunt and the female disciples arrived. Yankee explained that junior brother Q was dead, and that the killer would have injuries on their palms. The male disciples had all been checked. Now it was the women's turn. His aunt was extremely cooperative, telling all the female disciples to show their hands. Everyone complied willingly, except for junior sister Sue, who looked panicked. When it was her turn, she hesitated, keeping her fists clenched. "Open them," Yankee commanded coldly. She slowly extended her hands. Her palms were clean. The disciples breathed a sigh of relief. The killer wasn't among them. It must have been an outsider who followed them. The investigation was about to conclude when the junior sister, Zhao Qianyi, suddenly spoke up. "There's still one person who hasn't been checked." She pointed a finger. Our aunt." Yankee trusted his aunt implicitly, as did the other disciples. "There's no way!" How could Aunt kill someone? She doesn't have any powers. How could she have overpowered junior brother Q? But the junior sister was insistent. If she's innocent, why is she afraid to show her hands? "Do you dare open them and let us see?" She was the serial killer, the mastermind behind it all. And now she was being investigated by her own nephew, the man who was falling in love with her. This was the closest she had ever come to being exposed. If he saw the marks from the silk thread on her hands, every disciple present would know the truth. As her nephew began his inspection, he was just as nervous, silently praying that she wasn't the killer he was looking for. As she slowly unfurled her fingers, her palms were revealed to be perfectly clean, with no marks whatsoever. Her name was instantly cleared. The disciples began to murmur among themselves, concluding that the killer must be an outsider who had stalked them all the way here. Yankee ordered everyone to travel in groups of 3 or more and to take turns standing watch to avoid anyone being caught alone. Everyone paired up and returned to their rooms, except for junior sister Sue, who was still lurking suspiciously in the hallway. Yankee happened to be waiting just outside. She jumped, startled. "It was you, wasn't it?" Yankee questioned her directly. "Senior brother, I don't know what you're talking about. The scent on you is the same as the knockout incense in junior brother Q's room. It's faint, but I smelled it when I was checking your hands. If I'm not mistaken, the incense is still in your sleeve. Were you on your way to dispose of it?" Just as he said it, a small vial of incense powder fell from her sleeve. She had no way to deny it now. "Why?" Yankee asked. She finally broke down, spitting out the truth. "That bastard deserved to die. I made a mistake and accidentally damaged a book in the library. He promised to cover for me and not tell anyone. I thought he was being kind, but he had other plans. He used it as blackmail to violate me, month after month. Later, I found out I wasn't the only one. Many other female disciples in the sect had suffered the same abuse. Even out here in the wilderness, he tried it again. I couldn't take it anymore, so I killed him. I've already confessed. I'm ready to accept my punishment. Arrest me." "No," Yankee said. "You're not the killer. I won't arrest you. You may have been the one to drug them, but you weren't the one who did the killing. Knowing your personality, you wouldn't have been able to stay so calm after murdering someone. Besides, your build doesn't match the figure I saw leaving the scene. Someone helped you, didn't they?" Junior sister Q stared at him, stunned. Meanwhile, back in her room, Marshal Aunt Ruan Lee washed her hands. As the water ran over her palms, a clear red line from a silk thread became visible. It turned out she had used a special illusion talisman to cover the wound when she went to the crime scene, which is why no one saw it. Just then, her nephew Yankee came to her door. Through his conversation with junior sister Q, he had learned that the killer was a woman in a black robe, with a build very similar to his aunt's. At the time of the murder, all the other female disciples were in pairs or groups. Only Ruan Lee was alone with no alibi. Could he really bring himself to suspect her? As he stood there, conflicted, Ruan Lee offered him a cup of hot tea. "You must be exhausted from leading the team these past few days. Have some tea." Yankee hesitated. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder echoed outside. Ruan Lee yelped and instinctively threw herself into his arms, dropping the tea, which shattered on the floor. She trembled in his embrace. Yankee was momentarily stunned. But seeing her so terrified, he pushed all thoughts of the investigation aside. Before long, she had fallen asleep in his arms. He had known her for so long, but this was the first time he realized she was afraid of thunder. She seemed so fragile, as if she would break at the slightest touch. Thanks to the storm, Ruan Li had narrowly avoided being exposed. Her genuine fear had made her nephew so sympathetic that he had completely forgotten to check her hands for injuries. Ever since that night she had sought refuge in his arms during the thunderstorm, he couldn't control his own heart. All the teachings from his master about being a gentleman and maintaining propriety went out the window whenever he was near her. He felt ashamed. The next morning, as everyone was preparing to leave for the Immortal Mountain, he acted completely out of character and started avoiding his aunt. Previously, he had always been the one to personally carry her on his sword for travel, but this time he assigned another female disciple to the task. Ruan Li sensed his intentions, and though she was a little confused, she went along with his arrangement. Soon the disciples of the Cloud Immortal sect arrived at the Immortal Mountain. The Great Sect Conference was set to begin in 3 days. That evening, Yankee went for a walk and, without realizing it, found himself standing outside his aunt's room. He didn't even know why he was there. His feet had just carried him. He felt a pang of guilt. If his aunt knew about the dreams he'd been having, she would surely be disgusted with him. Suddenly, the door opened and she stepped out. He froze, completely at a loss for words. "Marshal nephew Yankee, what are you doing outside my door?" I was on patrol." "It's late, Aunt. Where are you headed?" "I couldn't sleep. I'm just going out for some air." As they walked, Yankee followed closely behind her. Ruan Li found his behavior odd. He was keeping his distance, yet still trying to protect her. Suddenly, an old acquaintance of Ruan Li's, sect leader Zhang Qinfeng of the Lin sect, appeared before them. "Friend Ruan Li, it's been a while. You're as beautiful as ever. Do you remember me?" "No, move." Wait. I heard you had a cultivation accident and lost all your spiritual power. Why don't you let me check your pulse for you?" The next second, Zhang Qinfeng's hand was caught in a vice-like grip. Yankee glared at him, his voice ice-cold. "Sect Master, please conduct yourself with dignity." The sheer pressure radiating from Yankee was palpable, and even a man of Zhang Qinfeng's cultivation level felt a sense of danger. He wisely decided to back off. When they were alone again, Ruan Li asked, "Yankee, you've always been the most level-headed of all the disciples. Why did you just show so much killing intent?" Yankee's face darkened and he didn't answer. His aunt couldn't possibly know that for a brief moment. He had wanted to gouge out Zhang Qinfeng's eyes for looking at her with such disrespect. Seeing that he wouldn't answer, she continued, "If a situation like that happens again, you can find a private place and beat him up. But if you make an enemy of a petty man in public, he'll hold a grudge and might cause trouble for you later." Yankee realized she was worried about him. "Aunt?" he asked, confused. "Why are you so good to me?" "'Cause I suppose I like you." Yankee's heart nearly stopped. Was this the confession he had been waiting for? But then she added, "Your character and appearance are impeccable. Most importantly, you respect your elders and care for the young. It's hard for me not to like a junior like you." And just like that, his dream was shattered again. 3 days later, the Centennial Immortal Sect Conference began. Each of the 12 participating sects sent 6 disciples to compete in one-on-one matches. The final winner would receive a top-grade magical weapon. In the crowd, Ruan Li looked worriedly at her nephew. "When you're fighting, don't be too competitive. Just fight until a winner is clear. Don't get hurt." He nodded, telling her not to worry. Just then, the disciples noticed something strange on the viewing platform. "That's odd. Among the 12 sect leader seats, the one for the Lin sect is empty. I heard that their sect leader, Zhang Qinfeng, was taking a leak last night, somehow slipped, and fell into a manure pit. He's still unconscious." Hearing this, Yankee, who was standing in the crowd, couldn't help but feel a little cheerful. He was the male lead, yet he had fallen for the villainess. And now, just as things were getting interesting, the female lead of the story showed up, trying to get him to switch love interests. This female lead was Xiao Shenyun from the Kang sect. She was beautiful, talented, and the pride of her sect. According to the original novel's plot, the male lead, Yankee, was supposed to be matched against her in the competition. They would be evenly matched, tie for first place, and then travel the world together, fighting ancient beasts. After numerous life-and-death situations, they would become a legendary couple. But the plot had taken a strange turn. When Yankee saw Xiao Shenyun, the supposed love of his life, he felt absolutely nothing. In fact, he made a silent vow, once he won the tournament and caught the killer, he would confess his feelings to his aunt. As fate would have it, Yankee and Xiao Shenyun were drawn to fight each other. The crowd was buzzing, already shipping them as a couple. After all, they were the 2 most talented disciples of their generation, and their sects were of equal standing. It was a match made in heaven. But strangely, Yankee stood on the stage, refusing to start the fight. His gaze kept darting over to where his Aunt Ruin Lee was sitting. Only when she finally woke up from her nap and was ready to watch, did he turn to Xiao Xianyun and tell her to begin. From her seat, his aunt thought, "What is this silly nephew doing? The match is about to start and he's still looking at me." According to the original plot, their fight was supposed to end in a draw. That meant Xiao Xianyun was no pushover. But as soon as they began to fight, the unexpected happened. Yankee made just 2 moves, and Xiao Xianyun was soundly defeated. Everyone had expected a long, hard-fought battle, but he had won with shocking ease. With Xiao Xianyun's defeat, the Cloud Immortal sect was victorious. Ruin Li watched, bewildered. The original plot had been completely derailed. After the match, Yankee's gaze landed on her again, his expression practically begging for her praise. All these recent events were just too strange. Ruin Li began to wonder if her nephew had truly developed forbidden feelings for her. That night, she was gazing at the moon from a pavilion when Yankee found her again. Seeing she was only wearing a thin robe, he took a blanket from his storage space and draped it over her shoulders. "Aunt, the night wind is cold. You don't have any spiritual energy to protect you, so you should keep warm." Ruin Li paused for a second, staring blankly at him before murmuring that she was heading back. The large cloak made her small frame seem even more delicate. Suddenly, Yankee's eyes widened as if he'd just realized something. A drop of cold sweat trickled down his temple. The sight of his aunt wrapped in the cloak. It was an exact match for his memory of the shadowy figure of the serial killer. He quickly followed her back to her residence. Unwilling to believe his own intuition, he made up an excuse to stay in her room a little longer. "I feel like I'm on the verge of a breakthrough these past few days, but I can't seem to make it happen. Aunt, could you perhaps offer some guidance?" Ruan Li, completely unsuspecting, agreed. She sat on the bed and began circulating her energy to help him. As she did, Yankee confirmed it. Aside from some residual core energy in her dantian, she had absolutely no cultivation power. He had also taken a quick look around the room and found nothing suspicious. Just then, the Lin sect leader, Zhang Qinfeng, who was still nursing a grudge against Yankee, crept up to the door. Seeing the aunt and nephew alone together in a room, he became enraged. He lit a stick of aphrodisiac incense and stuck it through a crack in the door, planning to make Yankee pay. The moment her nephew smelled the scent, he knew something was wrong. But his aunt Ruin Li was already flushed red and collapsing into his arms. Because of her past injury, she had no cultivation power to suppress the drug's effects. He had to find a way to clear her head, and fast. The next second, she pulled him in for a forceful kiss, her voice soft and pleading. "Help me." He grabbed her wandering hands. "This will only make it worse." He then gently laid her down on the bed. "You've always been the one to teach me. Now it's my turn to teach you something else." With that, he leaned down and kissed the smooth skin of her chest. She bit her lip, still fighting for control, but eventually her consciousness slipped away entirely. Meanwhile, Zhang Qinfeng, the man who had drugged them, had rounded up a group of elders in the middle of the night, intending to catch them in the act. He confidently threw open the door to Ruin Li's room. But instead of a scandalous scene, he found Ruin Li sitting alone at a tea table reading a book. When she saw them, she feigned confusion. "To what do I owe the pleasure of this late-night visit?" Zhang Qinfeng, realizing he'd been played, flew into a rage. "Stop pretending! An hour ago, I saw you and Yankee in this room with my own eyes. Where did you hide him?" Ruin Li chuckled softly. "I generally keep to myself and dislike visitors. Why would you make up such slanderous lies about me? And besides, how did you know someone was in my room in the first place?" Zhang Qinfeng was speechless. The elders dragged him away and had his Lin sect officially removed from the conference roster. After everyone was gone, Ruin Li called out towards a wardrobe behind her. "You can come out now." Yankee emerged from the closet, a bright red handprint visible on his cheek. "Aunt, I was wrong. Just go, and don't tell a soul about what happened tonight." "Aunt, I—" The door slammed shut. Ruin Li stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt like something new was starting to grow inside her. The Immortal Sect conference continued for 9 days, ending with Yankee from the Cloud Immortal Sect taking first place. The disciples were all ecstatic, eager to return home and share the news. Yankee, however, was preoccupied with how he was going to confess to his aunt. He even sent away the junior sister who was supposed to escort her on the journey back, planning to take her himself. Once the other disciple was gone, Yankee wrapped an arm around his aunt's waist and stepped onto his sword. "Why are you holding me so tightly? Aunt, you have no spiritual energy to protect you. I don't want you to catch a chill in the air." "Then why are you flying so slowly? The fog is thick today. This is safer." "If you're cold, Aunt, you can lean in closer. It's warmer." Ruin Li sighed. Arguing would probably be more trouble than it was worth, so she just let him be. He, on the other hand, was already making plans. After he caught the killer, he would resign from his position as head disciple and spend the rest of his days protecting his aunt in her seclusion on the back mountain. He had just made up his mind to confess to his aunt, but upon their return, she was immediately summoned and reprimanded by the sect. While he was being praised and rewarded for winning the conference, his aunt was being scolded by an elder for the death of a disciple during their trip. "Ruin Lee, you useless cripple! You let my disciple Q be harmed by villains under your watch. You should be severely punished." "You just called me a useless cripple," she retorted calmly. "Did you really expect a useless cripple to protect the disciples?" Just then, the ever-meddling Zhao Qianyi stepped forward, claiming she also had an accusation to make against martial aunt Ruin Li. She alleged that Ruin Li had acted dictatorially, refused to participate in group activities, and failed in her duty as a leader after the disciples' death. Therefore, she deserved to be punished. Hearing this, the elder's scolding grew even more self-righteous. Yankee couldn't stand it any longer. "Elder?" he interjected. "You are the one who writes our sect's rules. Have you forgotten what you've written?" While the rules do state that a master will be punished by whipping if a disciple is harmed under their watch, it only applies if the master has the power and ability to protect them. My aunt has no cultivation and no combat ability, so that rule doesn't apply to her. In fact, many of the disciples on this trip saw their skills improve thanks to her guidance. If anyone is to be held responsible, it should be me, the head disciple. I am willing to accept the punishment. The elder was left fuming and speechless. Zhao Qianyi was stunned. She had only meant to cause a little trouble for his aunt, but she never expected Yankee to defend her so fiercely. "This has nothing to do with senior brother. It's all Aunt Ruin Lee's fault," she insisted. The next moment, she was drowned out by a chorus of accusations from the other disciples. "That's enough, junior sister. How long are you going to be so unreasonable? You're just slandering martial Aunt Ruin Lee. We were wrong about you." One by one, the disciples stepped forward to defend Ruin Lee. What junior sister Zhao said isn't true. Martial Aunt Ruin Lee is actually very kind under her cold exterior, and she helped us just as much as senior brother did. If someone must be punished, punish us. No, punish me. "There's no need to punish them," Yankee declared. "I alone will accept the punishment." With that, he turned and walked out of the main hall to receive his sentence, leaving the sect leader in a very awkward position. If looks could kill, the disciples' glares would have annihilated him 1,000 times over. To quell the dissent, the sect leader punished Zhao Qianyi for slandering an elder, sentencing her to 3 nights of reflection. 2 hours later, Yankee returned to his room to meditate and heal from his wounds. Suddenly, his door opened. It was his aunt. He had endured 80 lashes without a single sound, but the moment she started applying medicine to his back, he cried out in pain. After she finished bandaging him, she blushed, hastily packed up the medicine, and turned to leave. But as she did, her legs suddenly felt weak and she nearly fell. He caught her just in time. In the process, her hand accidentally pressed against a rather sensitive part of his body. A jolt went through him. "Are you okay?" she asked, completely oblivious. "Did I hit something? Let me rub it for you." He quickly grabbed her hand. "Aunt, if you rub that, we're going to have a problem." "Oh, then you can rub it yourself. I'm leaving." Ruin Lee returned to her own room and mysteriously pulled a single pill from a hidden compartment in her incense burner. Tonight, she had a big job to do: assassinate the sect leader. Later that night, she donned her black cloak once more and made her way to a hidden cave, where she lay in wait for the sect leader. But the person who appeared at the cave's entrance was not the sect leader, but her nephew, Yankee. His eyes were full of suspicion. "Aunt, why are you out here so late with a dagger?" Once again, her cloaked figure overlapped with his memory of the serial killer. He couldn't believe it. Why did it have to be her? Just then, they heard rustling sounds from outside the cave again. Ruin Lee quickly pushed Yankee deeper inside and fed him an invisibility pill. "Don't make a sound and don't ask questions." A moment later, a flirtatious female voice drifted in from outside. "Oh, master, you're so naughty." Yankee was shocked. Why would the sect leader be meeting with a female disciple here in the middle of the night? He then watched in disbelief as the two shared a passionate kiss, before the sect leader eagerly tore off her outer robes, promising her the best cultivation pills next month. Hearing this, Yankee could no longer contain his rage. His master, the man who always preached about fairness and justice, was using sect resources to take advantage of female disciples. Ruin Lee sensed his anger and quickly shushed him. Seeing the look on her face, he wondered if she had known about this all along. The two of them were pressed tightly together in the dark as the sounds from the other side of the cave grew more and more heated. Yankee was starting to feel overwhelmed. If this continued, he wasn't sure he could control himself around his aunt. He was pressed into a corner, body to body with the woman he loved, while on the other side of the cave, his master's affair was playing out in vivid detail. He was reaching his breaking point. To make matters worse, his aunt shifted slightly, her body accidentally bumping against a very hard part of his. For a moment, she seemed to realize what was happening. Yankee took the opportunity to lean his head on her shoulder. "Aunt," he pleaded, "can I just lean on you for a moment, just a moment?" A drop of cold sweat ran down her temple. If this kept up, the sect leader would definitely discover them. Steeling herself, she whispered, "All right, I'll help you rub it." His heart skipped a beat. He immediately pulled her into a tight embrace. "Yankee, don't push your luck." "Aunt, can you say my name again?" "Let go of me, please, Aunt. Grant me this." "Yan." Before long, the affair on the other side concluded. The female disciple took the chance to ask the sect leader for a promotion, noting that the disciple in charge of sect allowances had recently died in a training accident. But the sect leader, who had been so affectionate moments before, suddenly grabbed her by the throat. "A pet," he hissed, "shouldn't covet things that don't belong to it." He squeezed until she was nearly suffocating, forcing her to beg for her life, before he finally let go, reminding her to remember her place. Once the two of them had left, Ruan Li and Yankee could finally breathe. They stepped out of the cave, Yankee's expression grim. "What's it like?" Ruan Li asked. "To find out the master you've always revered as a monster in disguise? Cat got your tongue?" Yankee hung his head, unable to form a coherent sentence. Finally, she laid it all out for him. "Yankee, everyone has two sides. Take me, for example. I am the aunt you respect, but I'm also the vicious serial killer the disciples all talk about, the one who preys on her own." Yankee's head snapped up, his expression hardening as he drew his sword and pointed it at her. "I want to hear you say it." "It's just as you see," she replied. "If I don't use forbidden pills to maintain this body, I would have died long ago. As for those rapists and murderers, if their lives can be of use to me, why should I play the saint? Don't think of people as too good, but don't think of them as too evil either. In the end, I'm just a selfish person. If you want to kill me and avenge your fellow disciples, then do it now." She knew this confession meant her mission was a failure, but being killed by Yankee was surely less painful than being erased by the system. She might as well die here. But the next moment, she wasn't met with the cold steel of his blade, but with his warm embrace. "Don't try to fool me, Aunt," he whispered. "The person I see is not a bloodthirsty monster. You're the person who would risk getting scratched to save a stray cat. You're the person who would generously help those in need. The aunt I know is an upright and kind woman, better than anyone else in this world. According to the sect's rules, if we can gather enough evidence to prove that those you killed deserved to die, your sentence won't be so severe. Let me gather the evidence and we'll confess everything together." "You're quite the planner," she said, a hint of softness in her voice. "But what if the sect leader and the elders insist on executing me? Then I will die in your place." "Why? Because I love you. You've protected me so many times. This time, let me protect you." Ruan Li's heart stirred. But in the next second, she raised her hand and knocked him unconscious. She looked at him with a complicated expression. "Your life is your own," she said softly. "You don't need to entrust it to anyone, especially not me. I still have something I must do." As he lost consciousness, watching her walk away, his mind screamed, "Come back! Don't do something stupid." The cultivation prodigy had become a powerless cripple overnight, all because the senior brother she trusted most wanted to possess her, to turn her into his personal plaything. She endured it for 5 long years, waiting. Today the time was finally right. She approached her senior brother, the sect leader, feigning innocence and holding a wooden box. She claimed to have found some rare pills and wanted to offer them to him. He led her into a secret chamber behind his study. Before taking the box and opening it, it was empty. In that split second of distraction, Ruan Li drew a hidden blade and plunged it into his chest. "Your cultivation, it's restored?" he gasped in disbelief. "No," she replied coldly. "I just took a spirit-gathering pill. It converted all the lifeblood I've accumulated over the years into a single day's worth of power." The sect leader was horrified. The spirit-gathering pill was a last resort. Once its effects wore off, the user's mind and senses would be completely destroyed. By doing this, you've left yourself no way out. "Did you leave me a way out when you destroyed me all those years ago?" she shot back. "I was only 13, I looked up to you like a real brother. But at the most critical moment of my cultivation breakthrough, a mysterious person broke into my room and shattered my spiritual core. In the struggle, I managed to scratch his neck. From that day on, my cultivation was gone, and I could never practice again. A prodigy became a waste while the culprit remained hidden. That night, distraught, I came to you for comfort, only to see the exact same scratch mark on your neck. I never imagined that you, the person closest to me, were the one who pushed me into this abyss. In that moment, I understood. My only path forward was revenge. So now I'm going to return the favor 1,000 times over. Ruin Lee lunged at him again, but he suddenly regained his strength and knocked her to the ground. The wound in his chest healed before her very eyes. Junior sister, he sneered. You're just as arrogant as you were back then. Did you really think I'd be so careless? But what can I say? I'm obsessed with you. So obsessed that I had to personally clip your wings just to watch you struggle by my side. I've known all along that you were the one killing those disciples. I just chose to turn a blind eye. Do you know why? Because watching you fall from a genius to a cripple, from the righteous path to the demonic, it brings me so much pleasure. Enraged, Ruin Lee pulled a hidden needle from her robes and stabbed him in the left eye. He screamed in pain and slammed his hand on a hidden mechanism on a nearby furnace. The floor of the secret chamber split open, and Ruin Lee fell through. She landed in a room where every wall was covered with portraits of her. The sect leader descended behind her, holding a chain. While you were hiding on the back mountain, I came here every day, thinking of you, using these to console myself. Why don't you just stay here and truly become my little pet? The next second, Ruin Lee produced another dagger from her sleeve and stabbed him in the chest again. This time, he had miscalculated. The wound was real and severe. She picked up her sword and pointed it at his throat. Did you really underestimate the determination of someone seeking revenge? Did you think I came here unprepared? Sensing his imminent death, the sect leader began to grovel. Don't come any closer. Junior sister, I beg you, spare my life. Do you know what you look like right now? A dog waiting to be slaughtered? But even if you kill me, the sect elders and disciples will never let you go. Who cares? This world lost its meaning for me a long time ago. She gathered her remaining power for the final blow. But just as she was about to strike, her nephew suddenly appeared and blocked her path. She saw the fresh wound on his wrist and realized he must have injured himself to regain his senses and follow her. He took the sword from her hand and pointed it at her. A cold sweat ran down her back. If she didn't kill the sect leader before being killed by her nephew, her mission would be a failure, and the system would erase her completely. The wounded sect leader laughed maniacally. Yankee, my boy, you're just in time. Seize this bitch and avenge your master. Her nephew raised the sword high above his head. Ruanli closed her eyes, thinking it was all over. But then, the blade changed its trajectory midair and swung down, striking not her, but the sect leader. Ruanli was stunned. Her nephew had chosen to help her. My disciple... No, Yankee, you dare to kill your own master? The sect leader gasped, clinging to life. Why wouldn't I? Yankee replied coldly. You crippled my aunt, abused your own disciples, and treated human life as worthless. Dying 100, even 1,000 times over wouldn't be enough, but there's one thing you don't deserve, and that's to die by her hand. The sect leader's eyes widened in realization, and he began to laugh. You traitorous filth! You're in love with your own aunt! You two are! Yankee silenced him forever, plunging the sword into his heart before he could utter another word of insult. He then turned to his aunt. Don't worry. No one else will ever know what happened here tonight. You're going to cover for me? Yes and no. Before I entered this secret chamber, I couldn't understand why you wouldn't just report him to the elders. But after seeing all this, I get it. The sect leader was a monster himself. If it were me, I would have wanted to cut him into 1,000 pieces with my own hands. And this disciple has been unfilial. I have fallen deeply in love with you. Please, accept me. A faint blush colored Ruin Lee's cheeks, but she quickly hid it. You love me? Do you know how many people I've killed? A vicious person like me already belongs in hell. Your love is better directed elsewhere. But even after hearing that, her nephew resolutely took her hand. Then I will go to hell with you. Now that I have also killed, we are in the same boat. Please, Aunt, trust me, I will never let you get hurt again. Ruin Lee hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she was just an outsider in this world, an actress playing the part of the villainess. She reached out, took the sword from his hand, and in one swift motion, drew the blade across her own neck. She collapsed. Her nephew rushed forward, catching her, and frantically trying to pour his own life force into her, trying to save a person who was already gone. With her last breath, she explained, Don't waste your energy. My life was already at its end. I wouldn't have survived the night anyway. Yankee, my death is not a big deal. When I'm gone, pin all the crimes on me. Remember, I killed everyone. And you are the hero who stopped the killer. This is my last and only request. With those words, she went silent, leaving him clutching her body, his cries echoing in the chamber. Current world mission complete. Objective 1, harm fellow disciples, achieved. Objective 2, kill the sect leader, achieved. Objective 3, die by the male lead's sword, achieved. She never expected the mission to end like that. As her consciousness prepared to depart for the next world, she glanced back one last time at Yankee. What a silly boy. 3 days later, Yankee officially became the new sect leader of the Cloud Immortal sect. Under his leadership, the dark secrets of the previous sect leader and the deceased disciples were all brought to light, shocking the entire sect. Yankee ruled with integrity and justice, completely reforming the sect from the ground up. In just 3 years, the Cloud Immortal sect became the #1 sect on the continent. 100 years later, he lived up to his name as a child of destiny, becoming the undisputed #1 cultivator in the world. However, he never took a wife and remained alone for the rest of his life. She had just died by the male lead's sword in one world, and in the blink of an eye she was already in the next, stepping on the new male lead's toes. In this new world, she's the fourth prince, a girl disguised as a boy. The current imperial court has 3 princes and 1 princess. The first prince's maternal family is weak. The second prince is the male lead, not only favored by the emperor but also backed by a powerful family. The third princess is the empress's daughter, holding a noble status. And finally there's her, the cross-dressing fourth prince, born to an unfavored concubine. Her mother had been frail and went through great difficulty to get pregnant, hoping a son would win her the emperor's affection. But after a life-threatening birth, she discovered she'd had a daughter. With her years of hope dashed, she bribed the palace staff to lie, claiming a prince had been born. She managed to keep the secret for 5 years. Just yesterday, her mother died under mysterious circumstances. Since the empress only had the third princess and no sons, a matron was sent today to bring Ruan Li to the empress to be raised as her own. Suddenly, the sound of barking echoed down the path, and she froze, trembling, before collapsing against a wall. The dog wasn't hostile, but she was still terrified. The matron saw this and shouted, "Where did this dog come from? Guards!" Just then, a small, young hand reached out and picked up the dog. "I'm sorry, fourth brother. This is a puppy I just tamed from the wild. Did it scare you?" Ruan Li looked up. It was none other than the second prince, the male lead. But while having a son brought her prestige on the surface, it was still an act of treason. Her mother lived in constant fear, and she placed incredibly high demands on Ruan Li. If she did anything to displease the emperor or reveal any hint of her true gender, she would be brutally beaten. As a result, though she was only 5, her body was covered in scars. Her missions in this world were once again threefold. First, to hide her identity as a girl until the very end. Second, to stage a coup and rebel against the throne. And third, to die at the hands of the male lead. To be a proper villain, not only did she refuse his offered hand, but she stomped hard on his foot. "I don't need your help. Why don't you keep your dog on a leash?" With that, she turned and followed the matron towards the empress's chambers. But when she arrived, she was left waiting until noon. She never even saw the empress, who was leisurely playing with her bird inside. A handmaiden finally worked up the courage to speak. "Your Majesty, the fourth prince has been waiting outside for a long time. It's so hot today, and while he is a boy, he's only 5. If he faints at the door, it might not look good." "He's only been standing there for an hour. What's the rush?" the empress scoffed. "Are you implying that I don't know how to take care of a prince?" The handmaiden immediately dropped to her knees, begging for forgiveness. The empress had been in her position for 5 years, but a difficult childbirth with the third princess had left her unable to have more children. To make matters worse, the princess was frail and had been sent to a temple to recuperate. As a result, the empress couldn't stand hearing about princes or heirs. The handmaiden had clearly hit a nerve. A moment later, she was dragged away and expelled from the palace. Seeing this, the matron tried a different approach. "Your Majesty, as long as we have the fourth prince, other powerful families will naturally flock to our side. If he ascends the throne one day, you will be the most honored woman in this palace. Even if you don't like him, you must consider the bigger picture." Only then did the empress grudgingly agree. "Fine, bring the fourth prince in." But the moment she met the empress, her secret was almost revealed. Seeing how thin and frail she looked, the empress wanted to call the imperial physician to check her pulse. If a doctor examined her, it would all be over. She quickly refused, saying she had always been this way and was just tired today and wanted to rest. Since the empress had no sons of her own and wanted to win her over, she didn't press the issue. But then, the empress kindly ordered her attendants to prepare a bath for her so she could rest early. Ruan Li was speechless. It seemed she had dodged the doctor but couldn't escape the bath. In the bathing chamber, 2 eunuchs stood awkwardly at the door. "Your Highness, please. Let us serve you." "Get out! All of you," she snapped. "If you show your faces again, I'll have you all killed." The eunuchs were so scared they fell to their knees. They couldn't understand how a 5-year-old child could have such a terrifying look in his eyes. Finally, the door to the bath was closed. Ruan Li let out a sigh of relief. Even taking a bath was this much trouble. The days ahead were not going to be easy. Meanwhile, the second prince had gone to the fourth prince's new residence to apologize for his dog scaring her earlier. He couldn't rest easy until he'd made things right. After searching for a while, he heard the sound of splashing water coming from a nearby room. He crept closer to the window and peeked inside. The room was filled with steam, and his fourth brother was taking a bath. He instantly blushed, but then figured since they were both boys, there was nothing to be ashamed of. But the next moment, he saw his fourth brother struggling to reach his clothes with his short arms. This made him angry. Where were the servants? Just as he was about to go in and help, he saw his fourth brother climb out of the tub, his back covered in scars. He froze, wondering what his brother could have possibly gone through. He waited outside the bathing chamber until the fourth prince finally came out. Worried that his brother was being abused by the servants, he quietly followed him. In reality, the fourth prince had already noticed the second prince tailing her, but didn't bother to call him out. She wondered what he was up to. Could he still be mad about her stepping on his foot that morning? What a child, she thought. He can't even hide properly, and he holds such a grudge. Meanwhile, the second prince was a nervous wreck, terrified he'd been discovered. He wanted to go up and say hello, but given how his fourth brother felt about him, he'd probably be seen as some kind of pervert from a storybook. But wait, his fourth brother was walking again, and he seemed to be heading for the lotus pond. That place was remote, and his brother wasn't a good swimmer. What was he doing? When they reached the pond, he lost sight of him. With no other choice, he revealed himself and called out, "Fourth brother, where are you? Can you hear me?" The fourth prince was actually hiding in a patch of tall grass nearby. She picked up a stone and threw it hard. A loud splash echoed from the lotus pond. The second prince whipped his head around, thinking his fourth brother had fallen in. He scrambled towards the pond to save her. He was tripped by a branch she had deliberately placed in his path. He tumbled into the water. As he struggled, she stood on the bank, making sure he saw that she was the one behind it. She wanted him to resent her. As for his safety, the pond wasn't deep at all, probably only up to his waist. He would be fine. But when the second prince finally got his bearings, he didn't even see her. In fact, his first thought was a relieved one. Thank goodness fourth brother didn't fall in. I must have misheard. Just as he was about to climb out, a sharp pain shot through his chest. Oh no, he thought. Not now. Meanwhile, the fourth prince had just snuck a dose of cold medicine from another room. The night was chilly, and a child her age would definitely catch a cold after being out so late without it. But just then, she overheard two palace maids anxiously talking. We still can't find the second prince. What are we going to do? If the royal consort finds out he's missing, she'll have our heads. The fourth prince frowned. Hasn't he gone back yet? I thought he could swim. Suddenly, the system popped into her head. I forgot to mention the male lead has a congenital heart condition. Hearing this, she quickly ran back to the lotus pond. Sure enough, she found the second prince collapsed on the bank. As compensation for its serious oversight, the system used its hand of God to temporarily suppress his heart attack. But he still looked weak, probably from being soaked in the cold night air. The cold medicine she had was only a single dose, not enough for both of them. Looking at his pale face, she sighed. Fine, he can have it. She carefully placed the pill in his mouth. Then she used a lotus leaf to give him some water. His pained expression gradually softened. In his daze, he saw a small figure by his side. When he woke up the next day, it was his mother sitting beside him. She looked worried. What were you doing at the lotus pond? Why did you pass out? He lied, saying he had been playing and accidentally fell in. How did I get back? He asked. His mother told him that two of the palace maids had brought him back and they were now being punished for their negligence. He immediately pleaded for them, and his mother, after a moment's thought, agreed. As she left, he lay in bed, thinking. His mother said the maids had saved him, but he had a nagging feeling that wasn't right. The blurry figure he remembered looked a lot like his fourth brother. At that same moment, in the fourth prince's bedroom, a series of sneezes could be heard. Having given away her medicine, the fourth prince was now bundled up in her blankets, full of regret. To make matters worse, today was the funeral of her late mother. She had no choice but to brave the cold and attend. He thought that beneath her tough exterior, she must be heartbroken over her mother's death, and was trying not to cry. She was just sniffling because she had caught a cold the night before. The male lead, the second prince, was still trying to comfort her. It's okay to be sad. You can cry if you want to. You don't have to hold it in. His words were met with a cold glare. Get out of my way. What did you say, brother? I said, mind your own business. She shoved him aside, but stumbled and nearly fell. The second prince quickly caught her. In return for his kindness, she stomped hard on his right foot. He winced in pain. Stop being so hypocritical, she warned, her voice laced with ice. Next time, I'll stomp on both your feet. The second prince was stunned. He couldn't understand it. Last night she had saved his life, but this morning she was back to being hostile. A moment later, however, he overheard the whispers of the other concubines who had come to pay their respects, and he started to understand. It turned out that nearly everyone in the room was sneering at his fourth brother. That fourth prince is so heartless. His mother deserved it. Ugh, I'm so tired of having to put on this act. Look at him, not a single tear for his own mother. What a monster. He's nothing but a thankless wolf. While the fourth prince was well aware of what people said about her and didn't care in the slightest, the second prince's heart ached for him. He refused to believe his fourth brother was truly heartless. Otherwise, why would he have saved him last night? Just then, the empress emerged from the crowd. She walked over to the fourth prince and gently patted his head. "Don't be sad," she said soothingly. "I will take good care of you." After the ceremony, the fourth prince went back with the empress. On the way, she asked, "You and the second prince seemed to be talking earlier. What did you discuss?" "Nothing much. He was just offering his condolences." The empress let out a cold laugh. What hypocrites, she thought. "Don't you be fooled by them," she warned the fourth prince. "The second prince's mother and your mother were never on good terms. You need to be careful in the future." The fourth prince knew the empress was trying to turn him against his brother, but she didn't care. She played the part of the obedient child. "I know, mother. You are the only one who truly cares for me. Everyone else is just pretending." The empress smiled, satisfied, and patted his head again, calling him a good boy. Meanwhile, the second prince had been summoned by his own mother. "You went to the funeral today, didn't you?" "What do you think of the fourth prince?" He answered honestly. "Everyone says he's cold-blooded, that he didn't even seem to care about his own mother's passing, but—" "Exactly," his mother interrupted. "He's heartless, not even moved by his own mother's death. You need to be wary of him." The second prince froze. He hadn't even finished his sentence, but his mother had cut him off. He realized then that his mother disliked his fourth brother as well. Today, her mission was to launch a sneak attack. Her second brother was in the courtyard, practicing his swordsmanship. His movements were fluid and precise, impressive for someone so young. This only made her more excited. She pulled back her slingshot, ready to cause some trouble. But the moment the pebble left the sling, the second prince sensed the attack. With a swift flick of his sword, he batted the pebble away. It flew right back at her. When he saw that the attacker was his fourth brother, his face fell and he rushed over. "Brother, are you okay? I didn't know it was you." "Don't touch me." "I'm sorry, brother. I thought someone was ambushing me." "I didn't—" "You have no proof." But her hand was still clutching the slingshot. That was all the proof he needed. Even though she was the one who had attacked first, she placed all the blame on him. "I have proof that I was hit by a pebble. No matter how you spin it, I'm the one who's right." She turned and stomped off, leaving the second prince standing there, stunned and feeling incredibly guilty. He had managed to upset his fourth brother yet again. A few servants, hearing the commotion, hurried over. "What happened, Your Highness?" The second prince said nothing. Suddenly, a venomous snake slithered down from a branch above, its fangs bared. The second prince reacted instantly, slicing the snake into several pieces. And then it hit him. His fourth brother must have seen the snake in the tree and was trying to warn him. "Oh my gosh," he thought. "Fourth brother is the best." Meanwhile, the fourth prince, who was on her way back to her residence, let out a sudden sneeze. Strange, she thought, am I catching another cold? In her room, she opened her robes to tend to the bruise from the pebble. Her collarbone was already turning purple, but she didn't make a sound. Suddenly, a maid came to the door to announce that the second prince had sent over some healing ointment and other remedies. Hearing this, she impatiently told the maid to throw it all away. Sure enough, when the empress heard that the fourth prince was displeased with the second prince and had thrown out his gifts, she was delighted. "It seems the fourth prince knows how to read the situation," she thought. "He hasn't disappointed me. It's time to start training him properly." She then instructed her matron to make arrangements for the fourth prince to begin his studies at the Imperial Academy with the other princes in a few days. As it happened, the second prince was also there, surrounded by his classmates who were admiring his beautiful calligraphy. She took the seat directly in front of him, then deliberately leaned back hard in her chair. The inkstone on the desk tipped over, spilling black ink all over the page he had just finished. The second prince stared at her in shock, and the other students gasped. She, however, nonchalantly apologized. "Oops, that was an accident. I'm sure second brother won't blame me, right?" The second prince's expression darkened. He thought back to the night before, when his fourth brother had thrown out all the medicine he sent. Is he still angry about what happened in the Imperial Garden? He sighed. "Just be more careful next time," he said quietly. Pretending to help him clean up, she accidentally knocked the inkstone onto the floor. Then, pretending to wipe the paper, she smeared the ink all over it with her hand. Finally, she looked up at him with an innocent expression. Brother, please don't misunderstand. I was really just trying to help. Anyone could see she was doing it on purpose. The atmosphere grew tense. Seeing that the second prince finally seemed to be getting angry, the fourth prince celebrated internally. Finally, my hard work is paying off. But the next moment, the second prince simply patted her on the shoulder and said, "You need to be more careful in the future. You can't be so clumsy." She was speechless. Just then, the bell for class rang. After a full day of lessons, the students couldn't help but gossip about the strange events of the day. After class, the second prince stopped her. "I want to talk to you," he said seriously. "I think there might be some misunderstanding between us." She shot him a glare. "There's no misunderstanding." "Then why were you like that today?" he asked. "'Cause I can't stand it," she burst out. "I'm just as good as you. Why do you get to be better than me at everything?" The second prince froze, a look of understanding dawning on his face. He watched thoughtfully as his fourth brother stormed away. A few days later, the empress summoned her for questioning. "How are your studies going?" "Father Emperor is very pleased with my progress," she reported. "But in the past, he always said my calligraphy was too aggressive. He only likes second brothers. He even gave second brother a special reward." "Well," the empress said, "if your father doesn't like your aggressive style, then you should change it. Remember, you must please him, and you absolutely cannot fall behind anyone, especially the second prince." It was time to step up her game. She secretly gathered most of the students from the Imperial Academy and, through a combination of threats and bribes, convinced them to help her bully the second prince. At that moment, the second prince was reading in the courtyard. Suddenly, he heard rustling from the bushes nearby. A moment later, he was completely surrounded by the other students. "What is the meaning of this?" he asked, his expression turning cold. The fourth prince stepped out from the crowd. "We heard that second brother is a skilled martial artist. We've come to ask for a few pointers." With a single command, the students all rushed towards the second prince. But with just a slight lift of his hand, the largest of them went flying. Then, with a light leap, he used the remaining students as stepping stones, leaving them all on the ground. In just a few seconds, nearly all of her reinforcements were defeated by a single person. "Fourth brother," he said, his eyes fixed on her. "Can we talk now?" The fourth prince's face darkened. She clearly had no intention of talking. The next moment, she lunged forward. She bit down hard on his leg. He winced, gritting his teeth in pain. The other students cried out. But she held on, glaring fiercely up at him. "Aren't you afraid I'll tell father what happened today?" the second prince demanded. That was exactly what she wanted. She hoped he would hate her so much that he couldn't stand it. The guards arrived. As usual, he chose to cover for her. Even though she had just bitten him, he lied to the guards, saying they were just having a chat. After the guards left, he gently extended a hand to her, wanting to help her up. "You're still young," he said softly. "You haven't trained, so of course you can't beat me. But I'll wait for you to grow up. I'll wait for the day you can defeat me fair and square." Despite his kindness, she slapped his hand away and stormed off, completely frustrated. This was the first time in all her missions that she had ever felt so exasperated. She had no idea how much longer this childish game of cat and mouse would have to continue. But even though she was furious, the mission had to go on. For the next 6 months, she continued her efforts to antagonize the second prince. She drew a turtle on an important essay he was writing for an exam. He was practicing archery. She smashed the target. Then she walked away as if nothing had happened. When she couldn't think of a way to torment him, she spent her days training in the military camp. At night, she studied. Gradually, the second prince got used to her antics. In fact, when she hadn't come to bother him for a few days, he started to feel a little restless. He wondered if she had caught a cold with the changing season. That night, the fourth prince returned to her room covered in injuries. The empress had been pushing her hard lately, sending her to the military camp, and ordering the general not to go easy on her just because she was a child. The palace maids gossiped amongst themselves. "The fourth prince always comes back black and blue these days. The empress doesn't even do anything about it. All she cares about is him being the best. I guess that's what happens when you're not her real son." These words were overheard by the second prince, who had come to visit. He decided to go to the imperial infirmary to get some medicine for her first. But before he even reached the door, his mother appeared and stopped him. "What are you doing here so late?" she demanded sternly. He lied and said he was just passing by. But his mother saw right through him. "Don't think I don't know what you've been up to. You've been letting that little brat walk all over you. And what has it gotten you? You indulge him, and how does he repay you? Haven't you heard what the servants have been saying?" The second prince froze. A montage of all the times the fourth prince had shown her disgust for him flashed through his mind. Maybe his fourth brother really did hate him. His mother continued, "Our family and the empress's faction have always been rivals. You were born into the royal family, which means you and the fourth prince are destined to be enemies. Is it really worth lying to your own mother for a thankless little wolf like him? The fourth prince lowered his head, his hands clenching his robes. His mother ordered him back to his room and had him placed under guard, forbidding him from visiting the infirmary again. The next day, however, he managed to slip out of the city, claiming he was going hunting to make a new fur blanket for the emperor. His mother, thinking he was trying to curry favor with his father, let him go. In the forest outside the city, he had only been hunting for a short while before he sent his servants away, saying he wanted to go on his own. In a patch of grass not far away, he saw something moving. He drew his bow, but when he looked closer, he saw it was a white fox, pitifully licking its wounds. His heart softened. The fox, alone and injured, reminded him of his fourth brother, who had also lost his mother at a young age and was always covered in bruises. He decided to let the fox go, and an idea began to form in his mind. That afternoon, the entire imperial infirmary was in an uproar. A rumor spread through the palace that the second prince had suffered a heart palpitation while hunting and had fallen from his horse. The royal consort was said to be furious. But the very next day, the injured second prince showed up at the academy as usual. The other students crowded around him, asking if he was all right. He calmly replied that it was nothing serious and he would be fine after a few days' rest. He then looked up. His eyes met the fourth prince's. She quickly looked away. She sat down at the desk in front of him. After a half day of lessons, the second prince stopped her. He pulled out a container of the best ointment for external injuries from the infirmary. "Second brother, is this your idea of charity? Do you think that I, an unfavored prince, should feel blessed to receive a handout from you?" The second prince's hand froze. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I overstepped." He placed the ointment on the desk and told his brother to do with it as he pleased. He left. The fourth prince glanced at the small container. He ultimately left it there. It wasn't until later, when she was near the infirmary, that she overheard the truth about his accident. The second prince hadn't had a heart palpitation at all. His heart condition had been cured years ago. He had most likely faked the fall. Her expression darkened. She snuck back into the study and retrieved the ointment she had previously rejected. She muttered under her breath what a fool he was. Yet a seed of warmth had unknowingly been planted in her heart. A few days later, she finished another grueling day of training at the military camp. The general, having to leave on business, gave her a half-month's leave. After forcing herself to see him off, she collapsed into her carriage, a sharp pain shooting through her abdomen. She was just glad she had managed to hold it together in front of the general. If he had seen her condition and sent her to the infirmary, her secret would have been exposed. When the carriage reached the palace gates, she got out and decided to walk the rest of the way. Her small footprints marked the snowy ground as she clutched her stomach and hurried back. But on the way, she ran into the second prince. He walked up to her. "What are you doing here?" Before she could answer, a sharp pain shot through her again. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Are you hurt?" "Mind your own business," she growled, but her steps were unsteady. A gust of wind blew past, and she collapsed. The second prince rushed forward and caught her. He noticed that although she had grown taller, she was still incredibly thin. Like a frightened kitten, she clawed at him, trying to break free. But he simply picked her up and started carrying her back to her quarters. Her vision started to blur, and she could barely make a sound. The last thing she heard before passing out was his voice. "Don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to you." The second prince rushed her back to her room, much to the surprise of the palace maids on duty. Weren't the second and fourth princes always at odds? He laid her on the bed. He covered her with a blanket and yelled, "Where's the physician? Hasn't he arrived yet?" It was clear the physician was late. He looked at his brother on the bed with a worried expression. The empress really isn't his real mother, he thought. She's just using him as a pawn. A little while later, the physician finally arrived. The second prince immediately ordered him to examine the wound on his brother's abdomen. The physician was about to lift her shirt to examine the wound on her abdomen, but just then she, who had been unconscious a moment ago, suddenly woke up and grabbed his hand. "Get out," she commanded. The second prince rushed to her side. "Let go! The physician is here to treat you." But she forced herself to sit up. "Just prescribe some medicine for internal injuries. There's no need to examine me." "Why are you being so stubborn?" he asked. "You were so weak you passed out. Since the physician is here, just let him take a look." "Second brother, are you being a little too concerned today? Or do you just want to see me humiliated?" Her words hit him like a physical blow. The room fell silent. After a long moment, he turned and walked out the door. "Take care of yourself," he said before he left. She watched his lonely figure disappear, a bitter taste in her mouth. She then told the physician to prescribe a few doses of medicine for blood circulation and internal injuries, and dismissed everyone else from the room. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. The princes grew up, and the fourth prince's martial arts skills improved significantly. One day she was practicing with her whip in the garden when the second prince suddenly appeared and caught the end of it. She sighed and retracted her whip. You seem to have a lot of free time, second brother. We always seem to be running into each other. Your skills have improved greatly, fourth brother, he complimented. She let out a cold laugh. What are you talking about? You're the one Father Emperor favors most. Your skills in archery, calligraphy, and strategy are all superior to mine. Don't say that, he replied. Father Emperor values you as well. But she deliberately twisted his words. Oh, I know I'm not as good as you. Is that why you always happen to run into me after you visit the palace? Just to show off? The second prince fell silent, a look of frustration on his face. It felt like his fourth brother had grown even more distant over the years. With a wave of her hand, she dismissed him, saying she had a poetry gathering to attend and couldn't stay to chat. Even his own guard couldn't understand it. Why do you put up with it, Your Highness? The guard asked him in private one day. The fourth prince has such a difficult personality. Everyone in the palace avoids him. I heard that just this morning he took in another new beauty. He's so young and already so indulgent. Hearing this, the second prince's expression immediately soured. Do not speak ill of him, he warned the guard. Later, when he returned to his chambers, his mother was chattering on about something, but he was completely distracted. The guard's words kept replaying in his mind. His fourth brother took in a new beauty this morning. Are you even listening to me? His mother's sharp voice cut through his thoughts. He snapped back to reality. His mother looked at him, puzzled. Her son had grown more reserved over the years, and his thoughts were becoming harder to guess. You're not a child anymore, she said, changing the subject. It's time to choose a consort. The Prime Minister's daughter is a fine young woman. There's a poetry gathering at their residence today. I expect you to be on your best behavior. After a moment of silence, he simply replied, Yes. After he left, his mother turned to her handmaiden. Are the preparations complete? The handmaiden nodded, and a dangerous smile spread across the consort's face. She could only hope her son wouldn't blame her for meddling, but he was just too soft when it came to that little wolf, the fourth prince. She had to give him a little push. Meanwhile, at the Prime Minister's residence, a grand party was underway, attended by numerous high-ranking officials and nobles, including the fourth prince. She was already aware of the Prime Minister's eldest daughter, whose reputation had recently soared, making her famous throughout the capital. Today's gathering was likely a way for the Prime Minister to choose a suitable husband for her, and she had a feeling that the second prince was his top choice. This Prime Minister's daughter, she guessed, was the female lead of this world. The system confirmed her suspicions, adding that this female lead was actually a female assassin from the modern world who had transmigrated. The original Prime Minister's daughter had been known for being unattractive, but a few days ago she had miraculously transformed, and since then had been dazzling everyone. At this very poetry gathering, she was supposed to win the male lead's heart and begin her meteoric rise. It was a classic, cliché story of a transmigrated girl marrying a prince. Of course, she had no interest in the main couple's romance. As the villainess, her mission was to grow up, stage a rebellion, and die at the hands of the male lead. She was only here today to stir up trouble for him. But just then, she stumbled upon the body of an old woman in a hidden grotto. The woman was covered in blood, likely having been tortured before she died. The system informed her that the victim was probably the female lead's personal matron, which meant that things at the Prime Minister's residence were not as peaceful as they seemed. It was a perfect example of how the most beautiful facades often hide the most rotten secrets. As she continued walking, she heard a loud thud from nearby. A young woman had just kicked an old woman to the ground. Where is Ling Po? She demanded. I don't know what you're talking about, my lady. I was just following the madam's orders to bring you breakfast. Breakfast has always been brought by Ling Po, the young lady retorted. Why the change today? The woman on the ground just trembled and shook her head. The young lady then grabbed her by the throat. Are you going to keep pretending? Don't think I don't know what you put in this food? Just then she caught a glimpse of movement behind her. She quickly let go of the servant, told her handmaiden to watch her, and took off in pursuit. To move the plot forward, she had deliberately let the female lead see her. Then she revealed the location of the body, figuring she would find it eventually anyway. But this small, seemingly insignificant act had sent the female lead's heart aflutter. Was the fourth prince helping me? She wondered. So throughout the rest of the party, the female lead couldn't take her eyes off her. Ruan Li, however, was completely oblivious, content to just enjoy the delicious food. Her only job today was to sit here and not interrupt the main couple's budding romance. But in reality, there was no budding romance. Both of them were staring at her. The female lead, seeing how much the fourth prince was enjoying the food, couldn't help but smile to herself. He's so cute, she thought. And he helped me. Why does everyone say he's such a lecherous brute? The second prince, meanwhile, quietly instructed a servant to replace the strong liquor in his fourth brother's cup with fruit wine. He had noticed him wince after taking a sip earlier and guessed he didn't like it. He proudly raised his own cup. Then he noticed that the prime minister's daughter was staring intently at his fourth brother. And from the looks of it, she had been for a while. Could it be that she had taken a liking to him? A surge of jealousy went through him. At the same time, the fourth prince also noticed the female lead's gaze. When the female lead saw she had been noticed, she simply smiled and raised her cup to her. Ruanli was confused. But then she saw the second prince's dark expression and came to her own conclusion. Is he jealous? Is he afraid I'm going to steal the prime minister's daughter from him? The female lead was looking at her with infatuated eyes. The male lead was seething with jealousy. She downed the wine in her cup and left the party. She figured that would give the main couple some space to connect. But after only a few sips, her head started to spin. Her vision blurred and she swayed on her feet. Just as she was about to fall, a handmaiden appeared from behind and caught her. "Your Highness," the handmaiden whispered in her ear, her voice sultry. "You're drunk. Let me help you to a room to rest." As she spoke, the jade pendant on Ruanli's waist slipped off and fell to the ground. Soon, she was led to a guest room, where the handmaiden pushed her onto the bed. The handmaiden's hands began to caress her face. "You look like you're in distress, Your Highness," she purred. "Let me help you cool down." She then eagerly reached for the sash of her robes. But in the next second, mustering the last of her strength, the fourth prince grabbed the handmaiden by the throat. She knew that if her robes came off, her secret would be exposed. Meanwhile, back at the party, the second prince had grown worried. His fourth brother had been gone for a while. He left the party to look for him and soon found the jade pendant lying on the ground. He knew his brother would never be so careless as to lose something so important. The second prince, who was searching for his brother, had heard the commotion and followed the sound. He saw the piece of a woman's clothing fluttering by the door, and his face immediately flushed. Fourth brother is so reckless, he thought. If father finds out about this, there will be trouble. He pushed open the door, only to find his fourth brother collapsed on the floor. Is he hurt? He wondered. But when he picked him up, he realized something was wrong. His brother's body was burning hot, as if he'd been poisoned. The moment he was in his arms, the fourth prince started pressing against him, murmuring, "So cool, so comfortable." The second prince knew he couldn't let anyone see his brother in this state. His eyes landed on the nearby bathtub. He ordered his personal guard to get a change of clothes and a basin of cold water. Holding the flushed fourth prince, he whispered, "I'm sorry for this," and prepared to lower him into the water. But just then, his brother grabbed onto him and they both tumbled into the tub. The second prince's heart was pounding. The fourth prince's hands were all over him, and he was still muttering, "It's so hot." "No," the second prince stammered, his face bright red. "We can't." Suddenly, she flipped him over, pinning him beneath her. Their lips were just about to touch when she collapsed and passed out. The second prince's heart was still racing. He looked at the flushed face of the person in his arms. The drug must have been taking effect, he thought. Just then, he heard shouting from outside the door. "My lady, where are you going? Get back! Don't follow me!" He immediately became alert, protectively holding his fourth brother. From the sound of it, it was the prime minister's daughter, Wang Liue. Sure enough, she was just outside, looking around for someone. She had a crush on the fourth prince and had followed him when he left the party, but had lost track of him. Suddenly, a dark figure flashed in front of her. "Who's there?" she shouted. The second prince appeared, sword in hand, and swung at her. She dodged just in time. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, noticing that he was soaking wet. "I fell into the water by accident," he lied. "It's not proper for me to be seen like this. Is there anything else, Miss Wang?" Wang Liue had no interest in the second prince. "Have you seen the fourth prince?" she asked. When he shook his head, she turned and left. After she was gone, the second prince turned to go back inside. His fourth brother was weak and needed to get into some dry clothes. But when he opened the door, the room was empty. A guard informed him that the fourth prince had woken up and left on his own. "Should we go after him?" the guard asked. The second prince's expression darkened. "No," he said, "as long as he's safe." Meanwhile, in the back garden of the prime minister's residence, the handmaiden who had drugged the fourth prince was being hunted. She looked terrified as a figure closed in on her. Elsewhere, the royal consort had just received news that their plan to frame the fourth prince had failed. The handmaiden was kneeling on the floor, begging for forgiveness. The fourth prince was definitely drugged, she insisted, and with a poison that can only be cured with intimacy. Given his reputation, he shouldn't have been able to resist. I don't know what went wrong. Useless. The royal consort slammed her hand on the table. She was about to storm out when she noticed a carriage waiting at the door. Curious, she approached it. She found the handmaiden she had sent to seduce the fourth prince tied up inside, clearly having been tortured. The sight made her stumble back in horror. That night, in the second prince's residence, he had locked himself in his study, copying scriptures. He had been at it for hours, but no amount of meditative writing could calm his mind. The memory of what had happened with his fourth brother that morning was branded into his memory. Suddenly, his hand trembled, and a drop of ink fell from his brush. It stained the page. He felt a surge of frustration, not understanding what was wrong with him. Today was the day of the autumn hunt, and the male lead, the second prince, was blushing every time he looked at her. She had no idea why. To make things even more complicated, the female lead, the prime minister's daughter Wang Liwei, came up and challenged her to a race. She remembered that in the original plot, the female lead was supposed to challenge the male lead. Why is she coming to me, the villainess? I'd rather be alone, she said, declining the offer. Miss Wang, the second prince said, it is not proper for a young lady like you to be so forward with a man. My fourth brother may be young, but he understands the importance of maintaining a proper distance between men and women. Oh? Wang Liwei retorted. The second prince seems to dislike me standing next to the fourth prince. It almost looks like you're jealous. Our parents may want to arrange a marriage between us, but I am my own person. I am not bound by those stuffy old traditions. I like the fourth prince, and I will fight for what I want. With that, she spurred her horse and chased after the fourth prince. The second prince was left standing there, a sad look on his face. It seemed his fourth brother had really grown up. The stubborn, arrogant little boy was now a dazzling prince. One day he would marry a princess and have children of his own. At that thought, his grip on the reins tightened. He turned his horse around and headed back. Meanwhile, the fourth prince had also noticed that the female lead, Wang Liwei, was acting a little strange around her. She seemed to love talking to her, and while she found it a bit annoying, she didn't dislike it. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound from the bushes nearby. According to the original plot, today was the day the royal consort was supposed to send assassins to kill her. The quiet forest was suddenly filled with the sound of rustling leaves. Sensing danger, she spurred her horse into a gallop. Sure enough, a group of assassins burst out from the trees, shouting, "The fourth prince must not leave here alive today." As she fled, one of the assassins managed to catch up to her. She drew her sword. In one swift motion, she cut him down. The other assassins were stunned. They had thought the fourth prince was only a novice, but he was surprisingly skilled. Still, the royal consort had given them a direct order. They absolutely could not let him leave this forest alive. But just then, another figure dropped down from the trees, landing protectively in front of the fourth prince. It was the prime minister's daughter, Wang Liwei. It seemed she had come specifically to help him. The assassins knew they couldn't wait any longer and charged forward. Together, the two of them managed to defeat all the assassins. After the danger had passed, Wang Liwei brandished her whip at the fourth prince. I just did you a huge favor, Your Highness. How are you going to thank me? I didn't ask for your help, the fourth prince replied coolly. Hey, I helped you anyway. You can't just be ungrateful, she retorted, annoyed. Fine, the fourth prince said, his expression suddenly serious. What do you want? Hearing this, Wang Liu's face instantly turned red. But just then, a final hidden assassin lunged at the fourth prince. Your Highness, your time is up! Your Highness, look out! Meanwhile, a dejected second prince was waiting anxiously at the edge of the forest. It had been so long. What could his fourth brother and Wang Liwei possibly be doing in there? An attendant came over and reminded him that it was time to head back, but he just stared into the woods. Fourth brother isn't back yet. The attendant leaned in and whispered, Don't worry, Your Highness. This was all part of the plan. Her Majesty the Royal Consort arranged it. There are assassins lying in wait in the forest. The fact that the fourth prince hasn't returned yet, congratulations, Your Highness. It seems the plan was a success. The attendant had assumed the plan was a success, but the moment he heard the news, the second prince turned and prepared to ride into the forest to save him. His guards tried to stop him. Your Highness, please don't go against Her Majesty's wishes. This is all for your own good. But he was determined. He shoved their swords aside. He grabbed a horse and galloped into the woods. The assassins are all dead, Your Highness. Aren't you going to leave? No, I don't want to go back. Who was it that tried to kill you? They sent so many assassins. You're a smart girl. Who do you think? Wang Liwei thought for a moment. Could it be the second prince? The two of them were the top contenders for the throne, and it was rumored they were rivals. It would make sense to eliminate the fourth prince before he came of age and gained any real power. Thankfully, they had survived, but there was no guarantee he wouldn't be targeted again. Your Highness, she said, her cheeks flushing, you saw today that I'm a decent fighter. If you ever need help in the future, just come to me. But the fourth prince immediately shut her down. No, thank you. Wang Liwei was speechless. Hey, couldn't you at least pretend to think about it? But she wasn't discouraged. Fine, it doesn't matter. Your rejection is useless because I've already decided. I would go through fire and water for you. I'd face any danger. The fourth prince was taken aback, not understanding why the female lead was being so kind to her. Just then, they heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching. They both immediately grew alert. The sound was, of course, coming from the second prince. He was riding as fast as he could, blood seeping from his hands where he had gripped the reins, but he didn't feel a thing. The sight of all the dead assassins only made him more worried. Is fourth brother okay? Is he hurt? And then he saw him standing at the mouth of a cave. In reality, the second prince had only ever been worried about her. He had risked his life to come here just to make sure she was safe. Wang Liwei was standing next to her. His expression darkened. So, she said with a sneer, "Why the long-faced second brother? Are you disappointed to see that I'm not dead?" Her words cut him to the core. He realized then that he had just been making a fool of himself. "My apologies. I see you were enjoying yourself with your companion." But Wang Liyue took offense to that. "Your Highness, don't you dare slander us. We are both perfectly innocent." Her words, however, were a bit strange. What does currently mean? Does that mean they won't be innocent later? At that thought, the second prince started walking slowly towards his fourth brother, who frowned, not knowing what he was planning. Thankfully, at that moment, her own guards finally arrived with torches. Seeing the blood on her, they turned and glared at the second prince. "What is the meaning of this?" But she just waved her hand. "It's not my blood," she explained to her guards. "Stand down. Besides, with so many people watching, how could my second brother possibly harm me?" Her words were another stab to the second prince's heart. As she left, Wang Liyue excitedly followed her, leaving the second prince, who had rushed here to save her, standing alone like a clown. His hands were still bleeding. His own attendants finally arrived, but seeing his dark expression, no one dared to speak. When he finally looked up, he gave them an order. "Listen to me. What happened here tonight, with the fourth prince and the prime minister's daughter in the cave, is not to be repeated. If a single word of this gets out, you will all be executed." If word got out, Wang Liwei's reputation would be ruined, and the prime minister would surely force his fourth brother to marry her. No, he thought, I can't let that happen. Fourth brother must not marry anyone. Meanwhile, the fourth prince, exhausted from the day's events, found herself unable to sleep. The look in the second prince's eyes kept replaying in her mind. She didn't know why it bothered her so much. It was as if she had seen that look somewhere before. Recently, the emperor's health had been failing. No matter what the physicians did, he wasn't getting any better. The court was in turmoil, and it seemed a storm was brewing. Everyone believed that the second prince would be the one to ascend the throne. She, of course, thought so too. But the upcoming mission was making her a little uneasy. According to the plan, she would soon be forced into a deadly conflict with the second prince, stage a coup, and finally, be killed by him after she had seriously wounded him. Suddenly, a eunuch rushed over, interrupting her thoughts. "Your Highness, we've finally found you! The general is here and the empress is urgently summoning you." She quickly made her way to the empress's chambers. The general was standing there, as expected. The empress got straight to the point. "You should be aware of the recent events in the court." "Yes, I am." "Then you should also know how little time we have. More and more officials are siding with the second prince. Your father is in a coma. We cannot just sit back and wait for him to wake up and name an heir." "Exactly," the general added. "If we let this continue, the second prince's succession is a certainty. Rather than wait for him to settle scores with us after he takes the throne, we should make our move now." The general gave the empress a meaningful look. The empress then uttered the treasonous words, "In 7 days we will stage a coup." Although the fourth prince already knew this was coming, hearing it said aloud still sent a jolt through her. For the next few days, she spent a lot of time in the countryside, finding the palace suffocating. She would return to her room and stare at the map of the imperial city's defenses that had been laid out on her desk for some time. Even though she knew she was destined to fail, she was still meticulously planning her strategy. Suddenly, Wang Liwei burst into the room. She saw the map on the table. Being as smart as she was, she knew exactly what it meant. The next second, the fourth prince's sword was at her throat. But to her surprise, the female lead declared that she would help her with the coup. Ruan Li froze, completely baffled as to how things had turned out this way. But Ruan Li, already knowing her own fate, refused her help. She didn't want to drag anyone else into this. She even ordered the prime minister to remain neutral, as he always had. If she succeeded, she wouldn't harm his family. But if he dared to side with the second prince, she would slaughter every last one of them. Wang Liyue was so scared she could only stand there, stunned, as Ruan Li walked away. Of course, she was only trying to frighten her, to keep her out of it. Before long, word of Wang Liue's frequent visits to the fourth prince reached the second prince's ears. "This could be a problem for us, Your Highness," his subordinate said. "Should we pay a visit to the Prime Minister's residence and give them a warning?" But he just shook his head. "No, that's not necessary. Just continue to report on their meetings as usual." His subordinate was confused. "But the Prime Minister's support is crucial to us. It would be disastrous if he sided with the fourth prince." The second prince shot him a cold glare. "Just do as I say." The subordinate fell silent. The second prince continued to stare out at the falling snow, a look of sadness on his face. "What is it that you want, fourth brother?" he wondered. "The throne? A beautiful woman, or both?" 3 days later, under the pretext of purging the court of treacherous officials, the fourth prince led an army of 100,000 soldiers and stormed the imperial palace. The palace was thrown into chaos and bodies littered the ground. Soon, the general waiting in the city received good news. The fourth prince and his elite troops had reached the chambers where the second prince and the emperor were hiding. But even as she was turning the palace into a bloodbath, the second prince was still in his chambers, tending to the frail, aging emperor. "I've been giving him this medicine for days," he said. He held the bowl up to the physician. "Why is there no improvement?" The physician was trembling with fear, unable to speak. Suddenly, the bowl of medicine crashed to the floor. "Your Highness, spare me!" the physician begged. "I have served the emperor faithfully my whole life. I just want to retire in peace." The second prince was silent. Just then, a guard burst into the room. "Your Highness, it's terrible. The fourth prince has surrounded us with his rebel army." The second prince's face darkened. The physician collapsed to the floor, muttering, "It's over." Suddenly, the second prince walked past the physician, pausing to say, "Keep watching him. The emperor will not die." The physician looked up, stunned. The second prince quickly left the room. Outside, the fourth prince and her army waited in the snow. Her second in command was getting impatient. "Your Highness, we should just storm the building." But she hesitated, her eyes downcast, thinking of all the bodies she had seen on her way here. Even though they were just NPCs to her, the sight of all that blood still affected her. Suddenly, a soldier rushed up with a report. "The second prince has broken through the rear guard and escaped." Hearing this, she immediately spurred her horse and gave chase, ordering her soldiers to stay put. "Anyone who disobeys will be executed." Meanwhile, the second prince stood alone in the snow, his body covered in blood, staring up at the sky. He heard the sound of hoofbeats behind him and slowly turned. "Fourth brother," he said, "you're finally here." The fourth prince rode up to him. "Give up," she warned. "My men have this place surrounded, and there's a larger army waiting outside. You should abdicate willingly and save us from any more bloodshed." "Fourth brother?" he asked calmly. "Are you truly willing to do whatever it takes to have the throne?" "Yes," she replied without hesitation. A bitter smile touched the second prince's lips. He raised his sword and pointed it at her. "Then you'll have to defeat me." Her expression hardened. She dismounted and faced him. The sound of their clashing swords echoed through the snowy night. "It's time to end this," she thought. Their blades shot forward at almost the exact same moment, both aimed at the other's chest. He had deliberately pulled his sword back at the last second. His sword clattered to the ground. "You win, fourth brother," he said, his body weak. But there was no joy in her eyes, only shock. According to the plot, she was supposed to be the one to die. "I had already made my decision. Whatever you want, I will give it to you. Just stop. Don't carry this burden of guilt any longer. It's not just the throne, I would give you the entire world if I could." But she remembered that she had been his rival her entire life. He should hate her. Why was there no trace of hatred in his eyes? Suddenly, an arrow shot towards them from the distance. "Fourth brother, look out!" the second prince cried. But just then, an arrow, fired by one of the male lead's own men, came flying towards her. She took the opportunity and let the arrow pierce her chest. As her small body collapsed, the Imperial guards shouted for the second prince to run. But he grabbed a sword and charged back towards her, cutting down anyone who got in his way. The two armies had begun to fight, and the battlefield was a chaotic mess of clashing steel and dying men. But through it all, he kept moving towards his fourth brother. A moment later, he too collapsed in the snow, his own wounds finally taking their toll. But his eyes were still fixed on his brother's still form. He couldn't believe it. The person who had always been so fearless was now so quiet. "The snow is so cold," he thought. Fourth brother must be cold too. He crawled through the snow, and just as his fingers brushed against his brother's hair, he lost consciousness, a final apology on his lips. "I'm sorry, fourth brother, I failed to protect you." Suddenly, from a distance, he thought he heard someone calling the fourth prince's name. He managed to open his eyes just enough to see a figure rushing towards them. It was Wang Liue. That night, the palace ran red with blood. The rebellion, led by the fourth prince, was ultimately a failure, and the empress's faction was completely destroyed. For the next 2 weeks, the palace was abuzz with a strange rumor. Even though the fourth prince had been executed as a traitor, the second prince had not sealed his chambers. Instead, he would go there every day and stay from morning till night, refusing to let anyone touch a single thing, preserving the room exactly as it was when his brother was alive. No one could understand it. Weren't the second and fourth princes mortal enemies? And ever since the night of the coup, when the prime minister's daughter, Wang Liyue, had escaped with the fourth prince's body, the second prince had been relentlessly hunting her down. Finally, one day, the second prince, who was meticulously painting a pair of eyebrows on a portrait in his brother's room, received news that Wang Liyue had been found. But on the way back, she had been intercepted by his mother, the royal consort, and was now being held in the dungeons. But the second prince forced his way in anyway. Wang Liu was chained to a rack, dressed in a prisoner's uniform. When she saw him, she just scoffed. "Where did you hide my fourth brother?" he asked, getting straight to the point. "Tell me, and I can spare your life." But she just glared at him, silent. "See where you hid my brother," he demanded, grabbing her by the throat. "You'll never know," she choked out. "You'll never find him." He squeezed harder, as if he was about to snap her neck. But even as her face turned pale, she refused to give in. "Ha ha! I'll die before I tell you, you murderer! You won't get to desecrate his body!" "What are you talking about?" he asked, confused. "Murderer? Desecrate?" "Stop pretending," she spat. "The arrow that killed the fourth prince was from one of your personal guards. It was a crowfeather arrow, one that only your closest guards use." He froze, a look of disbelief on his face. "That's right, it was you," she continued to shout. "The fourth prince was just a woman. She never would have truly taken the throne from you." Her words hit him like a physical blow. He finally understood. That's why his fourth brother had always refused to be examined, no matter how badly he was hurt. That's why, although he was tall, he was slighter than other boys his age. That's why, though he was handsome, there was something almost too beautiful about him. It all made sense now. He suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. A guard rushed in. "Your Highness, the Emperor is summoning you. It seems he's about to make a decision on the matter." He wiped the blood from his lips and waved his hand. "Let her go," he ordered. Wang Liyue stared at him, stunned. "I'm letting you go," he said quietly, "on one condition. My brother, she lived her whole life in a cage. Please bury her somewhere far from the imperial city, somewhere she can be a free woman in her next life." Wang Liyue was confused. The second prince was not at all like the rumors said. He cared about the fourth prince, so much so that he had just coughed up blood over her. Could it be that he wasn't the one who had sent the assassin? "Wait," she called out as he was about to leave. "I have something to tell you." His mother, the royal consort, was ecstatic. She knew the title of crown prince was all but her son's. All her years of scheming had finally paid off. Soon, she would be the Empress Dowager. But when her son returned, there was no joy on his face. And when he saw the golden phoenix robe she was holding, he looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Suddenly, a handmaiden burst in. "The former prime minister's daughter, Wang Liyue, has escaped from the dungeons." The royal consort was shocked, but the second prince calmly admitted, "I was the one who let her go." His mother just laughed it off. After all, her son was about to be the crown prince. He could do as he pleased. But the handmaiden continued. "The emperor has just recalled the first prince from his fiefdom and named him crown prince." "Excellence!" the royal consort roared. "Dare you speak such nonsense?" "What she says is true," the second prince said quietly. His mother was stunned. "Father did summon me to discuss the succession," he explained, "but I felt I was not up to the task and refused." "I will not be the crown prince, mother, and you will not be the Empress Dowager." She flew into a rage. "Are you mad? The emperor wanted to give you the throne. Why would you refuse?" Finally, the second prince revealed her deepest, darkest secret. "Mother, stop pretending. When I was 10 on the day of father's birthday, you sent all the servants away from your chambers. You looked so unhappy. I was worried, so I went to find you. And that night, I learned the biggest secret of my life. I am not a child of the royal family. You have done so many wrong things, mother. To innocent servants, to the first prince, to the fourth prince. I knew about all of it. But I also knew how much you had suffered in the palace, and out of love for you as my mother, I was willing to atone for your sins. But you just kept making mistake after mistake. You are the one who severed the bond between us. I am only returning to the first prince what you stole from him. If you behave, you can keep your current status. But if you continue to covet things that do not belong to you, then do not blame me for choosing justice over family." His words left his mother collapsed on the floor in a state of shock. A month later, the emperor passed away and the first prince ascended the throne. The second prince, who everyone had expected to be the heir, became the prince regent. His power was undiminished, and no one in the court dared to cross him. With his guidance, the empire enjoyed a long period of peace and stability. The only mystery that remained was what had happened to the fourth prince's body. Some said the prince regent had had it torn apart by 5 horses. Others said he had hidden it away. Most people believed the former. After all, the two of them had always been mortal enemies. But Wang Liuwei knew better. The prince regent paid no attention to the rumors. As the empire stabilized, he would often disappear for 10 days or even a half a month at a time. In a hidden cave deep in the snowy mountains, a transparent ice coffin rested. Inside lay the long-lost body of the fourth prince. The prince regent placed a freshly bloomed plum blossom in her hands. He began to whisper to her, recounting all the small moments of their past.